I'm going to talk about for a moment being tuned into the right frequency of heaven and the dial that they gave me. And when you are tuned in just right, that frequency that flows from the throne room. And that when we are tuned into the correct frequency of heaven, others will stand as a witness to us at where we are in our own growth. So the first witness is always what we're learning in the spiritual, and then through Joshua, through father and mother, and then the second witness always comes from whether it's you're reading a scripture or you're speaking with someone and they share an experience, and you have that second witness confirmation of what you went through. And I did a video a few days ago on that. So about being a second witness. So everything that we learn is in the eye of the beholder, through the lens in which that person is viewing things through, the frequency that they are tuned into. And so it doesn't, well, let me go back. So when we are reading, we have to understand that the scriptures, for one, are layered. The gospels that are coming out, the records from the ancient that are coming out, is very layered. And the gift of tongues is being able to teach us where we are at in that moment in the spiritual. And so it doesn't matter where we are, right? Joshua meets us where we're at, and that's how we are to approach others, meet them where they're at. And so if we can see that the gospel of, Peter, James, and John, the gospel of, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the gospel of Thomas, the gospel of Philip, the gospel of, Mary Magdalene, they are telling their view of the gospel from the lens that they were viewing it from. So the perspective of what they were taking in. Okay. And so when we come at people to shame or attack them for where they are, for one, shame comes from the adversary. For two, Joshua taught we are to meet people where they're at. And so seeing the lens of where they are in their spiritual progression, or if they're even learning in the spiritual. Because when we read these gospels, it is coming from that person's perspective. But when you are dialed into heaven and you read these, you begin to relate your experiences with the gift of tongues, interpretations of tongues is given. And so then you're able to say, oh my goodness, okay, this is literally what I was walked through. So our testing becomes our testimony. And that testing comes through the experiences that we go through in the spiritual. It doesn't come from the physical. We're instructed in the spiritual, and then we step into the physical aspect of that. And we go through the testing, and that's what becomes our testimony. So when you were dialed into the right frequency of the throne room, when you were dialed just right into that frequency, when you read the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, you're able to understand aspects, just like, the candlestick, the menorah, it just like opened up, and I was led to this book in the process of being instructed in the spiritual about our menorahs and our candlesticks, and it just opened right up. And many, many, many more things in this book. The Anna, the grandmother of Joshua, it resonates so deep in your soul, because you're like, oh my goodness, I understand what they're going through because of your own personal experiences, or what is being instructed because of your own personal experiences. And same with, when we read the scriptures. I remember the day that Joshua said, that morning, he said, I'm going to put you in the fire. And he was giving me a Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego experience. And he told me, do not step in front of me. Do not step in front of me. I'm going to place you in the fire. Do not step in front of me. So I can share the experience and the story of that, because that was my testing that became my testimony. But to somebody else that went through the fire, it's going to look different, but the lesson was the same. Okay, and so then we begin to understand the scriptures more fully. They've had me teach, and the gospels that are coming out, and all these ancient records that are resurfacing, because then our gift of tongues becomes the interpretation of tongues, right? Those gifts are given more manifest through that process. And if we understand in Matthew, I believe it's 18, Yahshua did not come to save those that didn't need saving. He came to save the lost. And what were they lost? They were lost from their true authentic self, from the true traditions of their creation from the very beginning. So he came to save that which was lost and return us to our true authentic self. And if we see that in order to do that, the things that are lost have to resurface. And in Genesis, it talks about, we are to multiply and replenish the earth. Okay, multiply is to add upon what was already here, build upon the beauty of that from the beginning, which is why the true traditions have to return. And to replenish it. To replenish it means it already existed. It already exists. We just have to pull it back into the now. So he is here to save and restore that which was lost. And that's the restoration of all things, is restoring those things that were lost. Anna teaches about that perfectly. Mary Magdalene, the gospel, it teaches about those things being restored, but we have to be born again in the Spirit to understand that. And so if we see that each of us are at our own level of ascension, the world has taught shame, the world has taught, fear, the world has taught that everyone's experience has to look like yours, or they have to understand exactly how you understand it, even if the understandings are being approached differently, but the outcome is the same. And so may we truly have eyes to see and hearts to truly understand what each other is speaking, because that is how, the language is no longer confound, because we hear with our hearts. We don't hear with our triggers. We don't hear with the things that the world has taught us and the false traditions. We're hearing in the spiritual. And so may we truly have eyes to see, that each person is viewing it through their lens. And when they are ready, we will all, we will have experiences that another person had. It will just be our experience, not somebody else's experience. And that's the beauty in it, and the beauty in these beautiful works, that when we are truly tuned in to the right frequency of heaven, when these records are surfacing and we read them and we're like, oh my gosh, how can I possibly understand all this? But I do. I understand perfectly what is being said. And this is, a record from thousands of years ago. How can I know and understand what's being said? For one, that's the gift of interpretation of tongues and gift of tongues. And for two, it's because you are tuned into the right frequency of heaven. And just because your frequency hasn't caught up with somebody else's, or somebody else's frequency hasn't caught up with yours, you're on different levels of that ascension, does not mean that we shame or make people feel bad for the level that they're at. So maybe have more grace and love and compassion for people. And maybe understand, in scripture, the art of manifestation is, Yahshua was teaching it as if it was already in existence now. And they have had me talk about that is the true art of manifestation. And I used to get really frustrated when they would have me give a prophecy, and I'm like, I don't understand. Why are you having me speak this as if it's like tomorrow? But it hasn't happened. And that's the true art of manifestation. The true art of manifestation is speaking it into the now as if it already exists now. And that's the beauty in it. So may we see it, just have a greater perspective on being dialed into the frequency of heaven, seeing, the lenses that others are viewing things through, and the level that they're at, and also seeing that was the beauty of why Yahshua met people where they were. It didn't matter where they were on their road of ascension. He met them where they were at, and it was beautiful. So just some food for thought and things to consider, and maybe have more love and compassion for people on their journey as they ascend. Have a glorious day.